Thanks for this opportunity to speak with you, and thanks to the invitation to come. I will say, at the risk of flattery, that Norfund is one of my favorite DFIs to transact with, particularly on the equity side. And I've been doing this for about 18 years. So that says, I think, quite a lot. I'm conscious that I stand in between you and your cocktails, so I'll try and be reasonably precise. And my own cocktail, I suppose I should add. I wanted to talk about Lake Turkana wind power, a bit about the project itself, the contributions we believe it will make to Kenya, and some of the lessons we've learned over the long-term development. But first, I'll just give you a little bit about Aldwych, a very short commercial. As Mark mentioned, our sole purpose is to finance, develop, oversee construction, and operate power plants in Africa. A lot of us come from AES, a US company that does a similar thing across the world. As management over the last 18 to 20 years, we've financed or refinanced about 11 gigawatts of power, about almost $4 billion worth of money spent wisely. We have transacted a bit in Zambia under CEC, South Africa and Kenya on a medium-speed diesel plant there. We're currently in advanced projects in Kenya, Lake Turkana, in Ghana, Tanzania, and Nigeria. So we like the continent, we love the challenges, we certainly love the contribution it makes to the countries where we work. Our investors, who also expect a return, are Pan-Africa Infrastructure Development Fund, FMO, Emerging Africa. The other country where we're working in partnership with Norfund is South Sudan. The Fuller Rapids project was mentioned earlier, and that's a project we're very excited about. We're not afraid of difficult places. We do hope we can establish peace there. So together with Norfund and NORAD, we can see that project happen. So that's another one of the projects I'm focused on. Just to give you a summary on Lake Turkana, it will be the largest single wind farm in Africa, and the largest single private investment, I believe, in Kenya, 310 megawatts. It's 365 Vestas wind turbines, small wind turbines, constrained by the logistics to get them from Mombasa Port, 1,200 kilometers to site, including 240 kilometers of road we need to effectively rehabilitate to get them the last leg of the way. We need to build a village for our construction camp. Also, we're working with Ketraco. Ketraco is the government-owned transmission company in Kenya. We're helping them acquire the way leaves for 436 kilometers to bring the power down from the site to the major load center near Nairobi. So it's a fairly complicated transaction. That probably has something to do with the fact that the project was established and begun development in 2006, 8 painful years ago, by KPMP, our partners. We, as Aldwych, joined as co-developers of the project in 2009, with the sales pitch that they were 6 months from financial close. So that hasn't quite come about, but we are almost there. The cornerstone of the project is the power purchase agreement, which is a 20-year contract that we will sell as Lake Turkana, the power to Kenya Power, with a government of Kenya support behind Kenya Power to make it possible. Our equity partners, Norfund, of course, who have been, again, a tremendous addition to the equity structure. We have KPMP, our co-developers, as well as FinFund and IFU. The debt, which is, I guess, about 460 million euros out of the 623 million euro project cost, are a very wide array of lenders. The mandated lead arranger is African Development Bank, supported by Nedbank and Standard Bank, but in total you have 11 lenders with whom we have successfully signed the finance agreements in March of this year, which a bit was a trying experience, but on a complicated transaction, but it was done. We also have a partial risk guarantee, the first instrument used by African Development Bank to help mitigate the event of the transmission line, which Catraco is building up to our wind farm, being late, arriving after we've actually completed the wind farm and are charging power that can't be evacuated. So another new aspect of this project has been the AFDB PRG, a similar structure to what the World Bank offers. And it's been great to be able to have another option there. We also have African Trade Insurance, which is providing political risk insurance for the Old Witch portion. The Old Witch role, in addition to being a co-developer, will be the largest shareholder. We will oversee the construction on behalf of Lake Turkana, as well as operate the wind farm. So quite a big project for us. I won't attempt to use the pointer after you, Katai, failed, but this is a map of Kenya, as you can see. Lake Turkana, the arrow pointing to it, is our site. The site is huge. It is 162 square kilometers. It's an extraordinary place. It is effectively vacant volcanic rock, windswept, as you can imagine, off of the lake, the southeastern portion of Lake Turkana. It is 450 kilometers north of the load center, Kenya, Nairobi. And it's in the Loingalani district, which is Marsabit County. And I think it is one of the 3 poorest counties in Kenya. So one of the advantages of this project is helping that area. It's sparsely populated. It's a very harsh climate. There are a few nomadic pastoralists who are in the general area, and I'll come to that in a moment. A quick slide on the wind regime. This is arguably one of the top 3 to 5 wind sites in the world. Without getting too technical, you have the Lake Turkana itself at 450 meters. You have Mount Kolal up a slope at 2,300 meters. And you have all around the lake the volcanic rock, which is fluctuating. The temperatures fluctuate hugely during the course of the night and the day. And then you have the stable temperature of the lake. And what happens is through the wind that's created by that differing of temperatures creates a Venturi effect, effectively a funneling effect across the lake into our site. So you have consistent wind in the same direction all year round. The wind speeds, for those of you excited about wind, are about 11.2 meters per second, which may mean nothing to you if you don't know much about wind, but European wind farms are financed on 6-7 meters per second. 11.2 consistently is quite extraordinary. What it leads to in terms of the capacity of the power plant is a 62% capacity, whereas a typical European wind farm would be 25-30% capacity. And what that, you can ask the question, you're looking again at this map, why would you go all the way to the northern part of Kenya to harness wind, to deliver it all the way down the country to its point of consumption? And simply it's because the wind speeds allow for a much more affordable power price. And coming to the contributions that we believe this project offer, the first one is a low cost of generation. We've signed a PPA and will deliver power at 7.5 euro cents, or about 10 US cents per kilowatt hour. The marginal cost of power in Kenya is about 18 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's a significant contribution to Kenya. I do on the next slide talk about the CSR, which is very important to us, but I fundamentally believe that the best way to contribute to community and to country is to provide affordable power developed in a project with integrity. So you're helping change the way business is done, and your end product is a fundamental pillar of the economy. So I think that's our ultimate CSR contribution, in my view. Also, the size, 310 megawatts, currently installed is 20%. By the time we get online with other power coming, will be, I believe, about 17% of Kenya's power. We could actually generate more wind at this, more power at this site, but we believe 310 was the right size, one for the financing constraints, but also to ensure grid stability, bringing that much wind into the grid. I think another contribution we've made is enhancing the environmental standards. We've applied the IFC Equator principles as well as the latest EIB principles. And we have gone, I think, beyond any project I've ever been involved with in terms of early stage environmental monitoring, social monitoring of every facet of the project. Those plans have been in place ahead of construction commencing and will be monitoring throughout. The project and Norfund have been very helpful in ensuring that was to a sufficient but also practical standard. The other thing, of course, carbon credits aren't worth a whole lot, but it's worth noting that in terms of offset, that's 728,000 carbon credits per year will be generated, and we are certified to the UNFCCC gold standard. Another contribution is the transmission line support. I mentioned that we are helping Catraco build and get the way leaves up for the transmission line up to our site. That is about, I believe it's 2,300 plots. One by one, we walk this line with Catraco, who have had trouble in the past. They're a fairly new entity, spun off of Kenya Power, have a hard time doing these way leave acquisitions in a sustainable and fairly time-efficient manner. So we have helped Catraco raise the standard of the way in which they engage and compensate affected people, and we've also hopefully moved the process along. So we've had a team of 8 people dedicated to this process alone for over 2 years. And I have to give another plug to Norfund because we're here. The Norfund grant has helped us tremendously in reducing some of those costs to ensure that those way leaves are acquired in a way that suits us as well as the people being affected. The second slide I have on our contribution of Lake Turkana to Kenya. At the moment, as you know, Aldwych also runs a power plant and owns a power plant called Rabai in Kenya, which is heavy fuel oil being burnt in medium-speed diesels. There's quite a lot of that in Kenya producing necessary power. The Lake Turkana project will replace about 120 million euros per year worth of imported fuel. Also, our contribution to our corporate income tax will be 22.7 million euros a year, 450 million over the life of the investment. Jobs talked about quite a lot. The jobs, direct jobs during construction will be up to 2,500 jobs and about 200 full-time jobs during operations. Typically, you could add a multiplier of 2.5 to 3 times those in terms of real impact on the surrounding community, whom I mentioned are extremely poor. We have built into our contracts with our various contractors on site to use local labor first and provide training programs in order to ensure we're getting the most out of those communities and they're getting the most out of the opportunity. The CSR program we're working on our shareholders. We will as we get to equity close soon. We have budgeted about €500,000 a year to put into the local communities, as well as any carbon credits we end up getting, which will go via Kenya Power and be put back into the communities. Also, the very fact that we are putting a road into a remote area that will have culverts, the road washes out every year during the rains, but this will provide year-round access to the area. So I expect trade and the overall integration of this part of Kenya into the greater country will improve. A small anecdote, when you go up to site and you meet these extraordinary people who live on very little, without any disdain, they will say to you when you leave, "Say hello to Kenya for us." Without, again, there's no negativity. They just, since we're going back to Kenya, they see themselves as completely isolated, politically, economically, socially. So hopefully this road, as well as the project itself will help integrate them into the economy whilst preserving their cultural integrity. Lessons learned. I could talk about this a very long time. I will not. I may break down in tears if I do. I think in projects of any sort in Africa, that you have to make sure when you start that the deal fundamentals are what's best for the country. You can go into countries where they desperately need electricity and jump at every opportunity, but when you have to work across a very long development period and generate and sell power over even a longer period, 20 years in this case, you have to ensure that you've got the right project at the right size and the right cost for the economy. And so that's really what was one of the drivers behind us sticking with Lake Turkana over all these years, is because we knew that the deal fundamentals are tremendous for the country itself. And that leads to the second point, which is you need to have and sustain the political will for a project, particularly a project like this one, which is a very pioneering project. Pioneering projects require a lot of new things from government and the utility. Our credit enhancement structure, which I will not go into, is new. The way in which we have this government support letter and facets of it were new. The Ministry of Finance support, the AFDB partial risk guarantee, all of this was new stuff. And if you don't have tremendous political will, then you simply can't progress on these deals. And the trick is, of course, maintaining political will with integrity. And for those who are skeptical about Africa, again, having done this for 18 years, I stand before you to say that there are good decision makers in each of these countries who rely on integrity as well. Finding them, nurturing them, showing them the right projects is possible, and that's what we've done with Lake Turkana, and we'll do on other projects. So there's a lot of bad press. Corruption is a real problem in Africa, but you can sustain and maintain political will with integrity. I wasn't planning to say that, but there it is. The third point, which is paying attention to your local community, is absolutely essential. It's easy to get so focused in your central government and your utility that you forget about, in this case, the very few people who do reside at the site and in the general community. Particularly in Kenya, where power is being devolved to counties, where you have local communities, it's essential that those people are very much part of your project and are kept up to speed. We've had teams up at site over the last 8 years, keeping everyone up to speed with the project, translating all documents into the local dialects, so that so that they knew what was happening and are very much part of the project. Number 4 is something that we were not able to do, but we should always try and do, which is oversubscribe the debt when it comes to before you start negotiating the finance agreements. And projects of this size, it's difficult to do that because you need effectively every DFI on the planet to make the deals happen. When you're unable to do this, what happens is, as you know, each lender feels entitled to ask for whatever they like. A lender, which will go unnamed, once after a frustrating negotiation, I said, look, your technical advisors, everyone has said you do not need this issue resolved in the way you say. Why is it that you insist on it? They said, because I can. And it just burned me up. But if you can oversubscribe, then you can play the lenders against each other to some extent and get the best deal, as we did on our Rabbi plant. That was not the case here and led to me, unnecessary concessions on the debt. Aligning incentives with developers, being a co-developer, I think that's very important. I think we could have done a better job on this transaction, aligning the incentives so that during the development, everyone's pointed in exactly the same direction. Also keeping the equity structure simpler. Our equity structure is extremely complex. The lawyers did well, but you have to put a cold towel on your head just to read the documents. So trying to keep yourselves aligned so you're focused on the same objectives is I think, something we could have done better. Getting on the ground, I moved to Kenya 4 years ago with the sole purpose of getting next to our partners and pushing the project from the ground rather than from London, and I'm very glad that I did. The other one, which is a case for all projects, do your budget, do your time frame planning, and then triple them, because you'll probably still be under what you think it'll take. And I've been doing this again for a long time, and I'm always underestimating the time, cost, and blood required for these deals to be done. The ninth one leading to that point is just have patience. Norfund have been a great patient partner. Our other equity players have been largely patient, and that is huge. Finally, together with your patient partners, work on expectation management, particularly with your off-taker. It's easy to say the things they want to hear, but when you're not delivering time after time, they will get even more frustrated rather than having the honest conversation up front about what it'll take to get the deal done. Finally, the next steps. We've been at this, the project 8 years, Aldwych since 2009. We are, I hesitate to say, near the very end. We're expecting to get the equity dispersed in the course of September, potentially early October, so get your checkbook ready, Mark. As will I mine. And then we'll start construction thereafter with the expectation that the first slug of power, 50 to 90 megawatts, depending on the schedule, will be ready in the third quarter 2016, and the full 310 megawatts in the second quarter of 2017. So a long effort, but hopefully worthwhile. Thanks for your attention.